Lesson 21, Jack and Tony plant a plant.
Known as school slackers, Jack and Tony were determined to grow and change. They had found a new objective, studying English. They wanted to found a dog food plant. They didn't know where to start, so they decided to go to school to learn. They wanted their company to grow internationally, so learning English seemed like a good foundation. They didn't know if school would have all the answers they needed, but still they knew they had to give it a shot. They woke up at the crack of dawn and Jack's mind was still from his sleep. Tony remembered a study he read the night before. It was titled, Planting Plants and the Power of Positivity. This gave them food for thought and encouraged them to plant a seed in their tiny backyard, mirroring the study's instructions. It was a symbolic gesture of their new initiative, intended to feed their motivation. They found a book that covered all the gardening basics and studied it from cover to cover, learning everything they needed to do to help their plant grow. They planted the seed and covered it with water. Jack said,
"I hope no fiend finds it."
With the day's work finished, they had only one question left to answer. What's for dinner? They found a good place to eat, and as they enjoyed their food, Tony said,
"What a great day, but I feel like we forgot something."
Jack replied,
"Yeah, but what?"
They looked at each other blankly, and after a long pause, they both exclaimed, "School, dude!" Lesson 22, A Lucky Charm. Jack and Tony never seemed to get to class on time, but this morning, as the sun came up in the state of California, they truly thought the last time they missed class would be the last. Jack was excited to show Tony his last acquisition, a rare four-leaf clover.
"Keep an eye on it, Tony,"
Jack stated.
"Between you and me, this is a game changer."
"Aye, luck be with us,"
Tony replied, trying to sound like a pirate. Suddenly, the wind took the clover from Tony's hands and blew it between the pages of an old newspaper. They'd never let a good adventure pass, so they decided to chase after it. Tony eyed a huge dog approaching them. They were in a state of panic. The dog had its eyes on the newspaper, too.
"An eye for an eye,"
Tony shouted.
"If you eat our lucky clover, we'll eat you."
Fortunately, the dog fled, with its tail between its legs. Their chase seemed to last forever and eventually led them to a nearby forest. The last thing they wanted was to be lost in the woods. After they chased the paper for 4 more hours, it came to rest against a tree.
"At last,"
Jack exclaimed.
"we can finally go to English class."
"Just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber,"
Tony stated as he pointed to the setting sun.
"You keep finding ways to surprise me."
They both laughed. Then Jack stated,
"We have our lucky charm back. Let's keep our eye on the ball and try again tomorrow."
Lesson 23, Building a Bridge. One bright morning, Jack and Tony decided they might start their journey to school a little earlier. As they began, Jack saw a far-off farm and had an idea.
"Tony, why don't we cross that field instead of taking the bus?"
Jack suggested. Tony squinted.
"That farm with the giant cross? It seems far. Are you sure?"
Jack nodded.
"Yep, it could be an adventure, and we might be mighty adventurers."
They left the city behind and started their walk towards the farm. It was hard going. The field was muddy, and crossing it was far more challenging than they expected.
"I didn't realize how hard this would be,"
Tony grumbled. He was feeling cross and trying with all his might to pull his shoe free from a particularly stubborn patch of mud. Just as they started to turn back, they saw a saw next to a fallen tree. Jack had an idea.
We could saw that tree and use it to cross the muddy parts.
The wood from the tree was hard, so it was hard to saw and took most of the day. With much might, they arranged the pieces across the large, muddy field, creating a makeshift bridge. When they finished, they were still far from the city and their school. Plus, they were all covered in mud.
We didn't make it to school, but we have a great story to tell,
Jack said, laughing.
And we might get a later start tomorrow,
Tony added.
We have a far journey, but our new bridge will save us some time.
Lesson 24, Lost at Sea. Jack and Tony took an unexpected morning run. They were running late for school, so they ran as fast as they could.
We're cutting it close, but today might be the day we finally make it to class,
Tony said as they dashed through the streets. They reached the harbor just as their ferry left. The only boat left was an old fishing vessel, bobbing gently on the sea. Without a second thought, they took a running jump aboard the slow-moving boat.
Looks like we'll be here a while,
Tony said.
Let's see if we make it to school on time.
While we wait, let's make the most of it,
Jack said. He started to draw a map of their unusual route to school. After a while, they were drawn to the excitement of a large group pressed closely together. It was a press conference. They didn't expect to see that at sea. A famous footballer was announcing his retirement after a draw in his final match. Tony, who was usually left out of such events, got a chance to ask a question. He couldn't believe his luck. After the press event, Jack looked at the sky and said,
We're running out of time. I don't think we're going to make it to class today. It's going to be night soon.
I've always been a night owl,
Tony said, pulling out a flashlight.
Let's press on. We should turn left at the next buoy, and we'll be close to the shore.
They finally made it to school just as the day was drawing to a close. And even though they had a close call with being lost at sea, they didn't regret their adventure. Lesson 25, The Unexpected Heroes. Jack and Tony were once again running late for school.
We always seem to be in a rush, don't we?
Jack commented, panting heavily.
Yeah, I was in a real hurry and mistook my dad's briefcase for my school bag.
They were walking along a long road. Suddenly, they came upon a large crowd grouped together near the river. They decided to stop and see what was going on in case there was something interesting. The local police were investigating a case. It seemed a lifeless body had been found in the river, which was an unusual body of water usually known for its tranquility. A policeman asked the boys,
How many days do you walk along this path each week?
More than a few. Our bus stop is on this road.
Tony replied.
But today we've stopped because of this commotion.
I'm glad you came along.
The policeman said,
There are few like you. Would you mind casing the area to look for a few clues?
Really? This can't be real.
Jack exclaimed, feeling like they were part of a real-life adventure story.
We'll be like a two-person group of investigators,
Tony added with a laugh. In the end, it was a really cool day, and they found a few clues which contributed to a large body of evidence and helped solve the case. They had the time of their life and became local heroes. It was all part of their unpredictable life, where each day seemed to bring a new adventure.
Life will be more predictable once we get to school on time,
Tony said, but he was smiling as he said it. Lesson 26, Jack's Monologue.
I'm Jack. Every morning, Tony and I begin our day with the same routine. We count our steps to school, but somehow we never seem to get there. In fact, we always end up on unexpected adventures. Today was no different. Just as we were about to cross the school gate, a woman named Martha approached us. She told us she was a countess and owned a large area of land where her ancestral mansion stood, but now a factory was being built next to it. The construction activity was affecting the walls of her mansion. Everything had begun to shake. She needed to move some antiques from one room to another, but didn't know where to begin. Tony and I agreed to help. Entering the mansion was like stepping back in time. The room she needed to clear was filled with ancient artifacts. We began to count and move the relics, carefully encasing the more delicate items in bubble wrap. When we finished the count, the Countess was so grateful she gave us a bit of money to thank us. We tried to refuse, but she insisted, stating that her husband, Count Dracula, was very rich, and it was a small amount for her. It took Tony and I a long time to count all the money. In the end, the effect of today's adventure was that we missed another day of school, but we learned a fact. Helping others can be rewarding in countless ways.
Lesson 27, Tony's Monologue.
I'm Tony. Every day of the month, my friend Jack and I have a lot of adventures. We try to go to school, but something always happens. We've had so many funny incidents, it's hard to keep track. Last week, we tried to book a study room in the library. We wanted to start a business and needed to read a book about accounting so we can know how to balance the books. But much to our surprise, the librarian had double booked the rooms. We found ourselves in a room full of advanced students, fiercely debating global issues. We joined the debate, but it was way over our heads. Talk about needing to mind our own business. Then, there was the day last year we found a lost dog in an empty lot near the school. We couldn't just leave him there. We had to issue a bunch of missing dog flyers around our neighborhood. It took us many hours, but seeing the joyful reunion made it worth it. Another day, we were only a few minutes late for school, but the whole town lost power. So we decided to service the community and serve at the community center. We helped serve food and spent a few minutes chatting with the senior citizens. They had so much wisdom to share about their military service and their own school adventures. It was an empowering experience. These are just a few of our stories. Who needs to read issues of a comic book when every day is a new chapter in the book of our lives? And even though we sometimes struggle with balancing school, our part-time job, and these unexpected adventures, we wouldn't change a thing. Because at the end of the day, it's these adventures that make life so much fun.
Lesson 28, Gaming Heroes.
One morning, as Jack and Tony were driving their car to school, they saw a small community of young gamers struggling with their gaming setup in the park. Jack glanced at his watch.
We have a minute to spare. Let's see if we can help them.
The gamers were thrilled when Tony and Jack offered their help. Tony, the more tech-savvy of the two, noticed the issue in less than a minute.
They're trying to game the system to gain an advantage, but it's backfiring. Their wiring is a mess. No wonder their game keeps crashing.
The president of the gaming club, a young girl named Lily, watched them fix the problem with admiration.
You two are the best. No one else in the community understood our problem.
After a few hours, Tony announced,
This should work now.
and to everyone's joy, the game launched perfectly. Overjoyed, Lily invited them to become members of their team.
We're a law-abiding, fun-loving bunch. Plus, we need someone who knows how to handle the minute technicalities.
Jack and Tony agreed, delighted by the idea of becoming a part of the gaming team. They promised to preside over the gaming setup and make sure everything ran the best it could. On their way home, Jack said,
Missing school to help gamers? That's got to be the best idea we've had in a while.
Lesson 29. The Mysterious Door. Jack and Tony were ready to face the new day. Every day they would leave their houses and say goodbye to their parents. They were kids and they were always kidding around, teasing each other endlessly. Jack's father gave him some health information.
Remember to eat your fruits,
He said.
You should inform the others about the benefits of healthy eating too.
Yes, I will.
Jack agreed, stuffing his face with an apple. Meanwhile, Tony was at home trying to arrange his books in his bag so they lay level.
I want to be at the same level of preparedness as the other kids.
Tony said.
But you're a different person, Tony. You're you.
His mother reminded him.
Just do your best and you'll be on a level playing field.
Once they were ready, the kids left their houses and went towards the school. They walked past the school's main office and were almost at the school's door. But then they saw something unusual, something that seemed out of place. The wind had leveled an old shed and revealed a mysterious door lying flat on the ground inside the rubble. The sight of the door opened a new world of possibilities in their minds.
I bet the door leads to a secret tunnel,
Tony said, his eyes shining with excitement.
And the tunnel leads to a hidden treasure,
Jack added, sharing Tony's excitement. The school day would have to wait. It was time for a new adventure. The door was heavy, but they managed to lift it. And just as they suspected, it led to a hidden tunnel winding beneath the school. They felt like they were in some kind of video game, leveling up as they went deeper into the unknown. Lesson 30. The Mysterious Painting. One sunny morning, Jack and Tony were trying to go to school when they discovered a mysterious tunnel beneath the school building. There was no reason they could think of for its existence. They reasoned that since they were known as the Adventure Guys, they had an obligation to explore it. As they went deeper, they stumbled upon an old, faded mural.
Look at that art,
Jack exclaimed.
There's a picture of a girl. She's at a party, but it looks like she's mourning.
Tony squinted at the mural.
Maybe they used to party underground during the war to avoid air raids,
He suggested.
Maybe we should research it. It might have something to do with the history of the school.
Jack agreed.
Yeah, that's a good reason to do some research on it. I don't know what the result will be. But if we use some reason and creative thinking, I'm sure we can discover the history of the painting.
And so they left the tunnel, painting in hand. It resulted in them missing another day of school, but in the end, their research was a success, and they uncovered the origins of the historic painting.